can get started. Thanks to everyone for coming out for the presentation today. Hope you'll be able to participate as we go through it as well if you're looking for input. We're always looking for consultation as we go through these processes. So over the past year, there's been a fair amount of consultation done by Chantal and Brad throughout the Okanagan College community, from Salmon Arm right through down to Penticton, obviously. And today's a chance to report out and say, hey, here's what we found, here's what we've heard from students, from faculty, and so on. And it's pretty exciting to see some of the feedback, and that will help us set some of our future directions, both in terms of how we support faculty, how we support students in the classroom as they conduct their learning here at Okanagan College. The intent, as I think you all know, isn't to make us into something like Phoenix University where everything's online. It's nothing like that. The intent is to make sure we're supporting our students and our faculty and instructors in the best way possible as we use digital tools, digital content in our classes. So that's what we've been focusing on, and the consultation has surfaced some things that we know we need now to pay more attention to and support, whether through budget or through training or what have you, as we move into the future. So I'm going to turn it over to Chantal, who's going to lead you through some of the findings that she and Brad surfaced over the last number of months.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for coming to hear about this. Brad is going to be joining us shortly. It's kind of a comment on our situation. Brad is here. Hi, Brad. Okay, you're going to be out there. Okay. So I think it's a comment on the situation at Okanagan College and the utility of technology, because we have multiple campuses. So we're going to talk about how we can use technology to better support that distance, and technology to change the slide. All right, so this is a bit of an overview of who we spoke with. I'm not going to walk you through all of those blocks, but what you'll see is that Brad and I, from September until April last year, we consulted with numerous groups across the institution, as well as the School District 23 here in Kelowna and the Aboriginal Education Council. So this informed the consultation and the results that we're going to talk about today. And we conducted a paper and online survey, and we had 207 instructors and faculty respond to this. We also had 587 students respond to the student survey that was conducted. All right. As we reviewed the literature in preparation for the consultation, some themes arose from those documents, and they're outlined here. I'm going to talk through a couple of them, but again, I'll let you read some of these for yourselves. But one is that post-secondary is increasingly becoming responsive and adaptable. And as well, the time and place as an extension of that is becoming increasingly flexible. Technology is allowing us to do that. Technology is also allowing instructors and faculty to focus on student engagement. It's allowing us to be present in our classes and have students interact with materials ahead of time sometimes, so that we can really leverage that time in the classroom with them. The role of educators is evolving, but it's remaining important to student success. Educators are key to student success. We know that the support and the rapport that we have with our students is key to fostering their engagement and their development as learners. So we're not seeing that go away, but it's evolving, it's changing. Technology is going to allow students diverse learning opportunities. It's also going to accommodate learners with different learning styles or different learning challenges. Technology is allowing us to better meet the needs of those learners. And the needs of the future work environment are changing. We are preparing students for professions that may not even exist right now. So technology, again, is helping us to try to forecast the skill sets that they're going to need. And some of those are critical thought, adaptability. These are skills that can still be supported with the use of technology in preparation for technological professions or not. Thank you. Okay. So what did students at Okanagan College have to say about their experience here at the college and about the use of technology in their courses? Thanks, Jake. Some interesting things came out of the comments that we coded and looked at, and that's where the statistics are coming from here. 98% of our students, as you would probably expect, have a cell phone. 93% have a tablet. Only 39% have a laptop. And so this was an interesting finding for us, that the need for resources within the institution is important. 95% of students spend 3 or more hours a day on their devices. Again, we speculate, we probably could say that we thought that students were engaging with technology a great deal. They're also using it 1 to 3 hours a day for their learning. And they find that technology engages them. They like to use technology for their learning, and they feel that tools that support them through technology are engaging and help them better understand the material. 81% say that they're using digital resources not provided by the college. So they're going externally, whether this is software, apps, websites, other supportive resources, outside of the course materials that they're provided here at the college. And 71% say that they're working. So whether that's part-time or full-time, so a lot of our students are working, and technology, again, can support them with being able to access materials outside of class with their busy schedules. So increasingly, that flexibility is becoming, the need for that is becoming apparent. One thing, Moodle is a big part of what we do here, what instructors and faculty are using, and you're going to see the percentage that are leveraging that tool here at the college. So Moodle is a big part of this conversation, and it came through that students really like the use of Moodle. They appreciate having resources available through the LMS, and that they find that well-designed courses on that platform really support them in their learning. So that was something that came up a great deal in the comments. And they particularly liked having access to lecture notes, ancillary materials, as well as criteria for assignments, and podcasts and videos. Interactive activities, too, came up a great deal. They like interactive quizzes, low-stakes practice assignments, things like that, where they can engage with the material and review it again and again. So what would they like to see? They would like to see more technology that they can interact with, as well as increased access to devices. So like we said, with the laptops, being able to have those tools accessible to them here at the college. And increased effective use of Moodle in their courses. And more videos and podcasts, like I said. And faculty and instructors. What did they have to say about the use of technology, how they're using it currently right now, and what they foresee for the future of digitally enhanced learning and teaching at the college. So most instructors are using some form of technology in their classes to varying degrees. About 80% of faculty are using Moodle to some capacity, and it looks different across the institution depending on your discipline and your interest. And many foresee increasing use. So when we were looking at forecasting for the future of education, a lot of faculty and instructors commented on a blended model. So they foresee themselves using technology increasingly to have students access information outside of class time and then engage with those materials in more meaningful ways when they're coming to class. So the flipping the classroom idea to some extent. So what are their concerns? Well, there are concerns specifically for students that came through in the comments. Technology not being effective for learning, so that it was being used in maybe an arbitrary fashion, that it wasn't being founded in sort of a pedagogical way, that it wasn't being designed and utilized to the highest degree for students. It was somewhat novel in its use. Students lacking the skills to utilize it. Sometimes we may make assumptions that students, because they're so well versed in some forms of technology, that they're going to be equally as well versed with professional applications of technology. And so faculty and instructors saw that they may need more training and support than we would originally sort of think that they would need. And then reductions in student interactions and relationships. So whether that's with other students or with faculty and instructors, we know how important relationships are, and we don't want to see a loss in that through the use of technology. Also hardware and software issues for students. So being able to access those resources and have them updated and functioning properly was another concern. And the concerns for employees for themselves in using technology, adopting technology. Lack of training and support, you can see. That was the big comment. Consistently that came about. People want to make sure that if they are going to go down this road, that they're properly supported and properly resourced. And that idea of lack of effective design. Again, people commented on the fact that maybe that's not where their training is. They're content specialists, and they require support in terms of properly designing again, pedagogically sound online resources, and maintaining those resources as well. And having the time to do this. Across the institution, we saw people that are doing amazing work with technology, building fabulous courses that are really inspired, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of innovation and practice and trial and error. And so faculty were saying, if we're going to do this and we're going to do it well, we need time to implement it. And again, the hardware and the software issues, as we spoke of before with students. And they're changing roles in educator, right? People don't want to see that. They enjoy their engagement and the meaningful relationships that they have with their students. They don't want to lose that. All right. Thanks. So, potential steps that could be taken moving forward. We're speculating, but these are some things that we thought we'd bring into the conversation, some areas that potentially were discussed a great deal in the comments and could be areas of focus moving forward, and we're looking for your input on this today. So one is designing and developing quality technologically enabled experiences for students. We see that students like technology, they feel it engages them and supports them in their learning, but we also want to make sure that we pursue this with intention and support for faculty and instructors so that it's successful. And providing students with flexible ways to learn. So that flexibility, whether it's through expressions of learning and access to materials or the time and place of learning, building in that flexibility increasingly in the development of our programs and our courses using technology. And empowering, supporting. So that training piece, that support piece, just increasing our focus on that, again, to foster that success when instructors and faculty are leveraging technology, that there is that scaffolding in place to make it successful. And lastly, IT. IT is really important and pivotal in this role. So continually assessing the user experience, a responsiveness, right? Checking in with the people that are currently teaching, checking in with students, and ensuring that there is that responsiveness to the tools that we're using, and that we're using the best tools at any given time that we can. And providing consistent and tested, securities, and as Ryan would like to know, privacy and secure data. Jordan's nodding too. All right, so discussions on the findings. I'd love to invite Brad up to join me or stay in the audience and also engage in this conversation. Thank you. So any comments or questions? I know that this is a very brief snapshot of 1,000 comments that came from instructors and faculty. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to ask either one of us? Yes, Carrie.
So I love the fact that some of the things that came out were related to support for faculty. I think one of the things that we really struggle with is instructional design. So I've been blessed with lots of opportunities to work with instructional designers, and so I recognize the skill set that I'm missing, especially when it comes to the digital world, because you need to be so much more skilled, I think, than we've had to previously. So I love that that came out. Did you guys talk with anyone really about the potential for different ways to engage with that instructional piece? So doing workshops and training still puts the onus on the instructor to internalize and then put that back out into the world, whereas working with an instructional designer where I have someone where I can discuss my learning goals, like what are the things that I'm wanting to get the students out of, allows me to collaborate with someone who has a broader range of knowledge and might have more options out there to achieve the things that I want to achieve. Like, did you guys talk about that, or did that come out in your findings, the use of an actual designer?
Yeah, so that did come up a great deal. So that was that idea of having proper supports for the design, effective design. And so that is, I think, something that's definitely being further explored and discussed. And I'll let you speak to that if you want to.
Yeah, it's when we mentioned support, it's support in terms of a technical aspect of how to even use this technology, but then also, as you said, support in designing effective experience.
Yeah.
Because we found there's been some testing of technology, and what we want to do is make sure if we are utilizing technology, it's doing so to enhance the learning and not just a cool thing. So absolutely, yeah.
I can go back to the first slide if you'd like to see. Yeah, that's okay.
Very first slide.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it had the number of students and then number of faculty.
So when I spoke to Ajit, he said that what, how did he term it?
It's
The percentage.
statistically
It's statistically
significant.
significant.
Yeah, so 587
That was according-
students and then 207 instructors and faculty.
Okay, and I don't really know much about statistics, how I can't even say it, but that's done. But there are different populations within the Okanagan College community. You think you got coverage from all of them? I'm not challenging, I'm just curious as to whether you did.
That was certainly our attempt. And when we were meeting with different groups, because we traveled to the different campuses, and in terms of instructors and faculty, we met with as many departments as we could, attended chairs meetings and department meetings as well. So that was a real effort. Certainly, I know that we probably were not able to engage with everyone, but we really made a concerted effort to address all of the campuses, as many areas as possible, as well as many student groups as possible.
So one final question, and then I'll start over. The figure that I did catch when I came through that surprises me is the level of PC ownership amongst the student body. I would have thought it would have been much higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
Will you ever get any information as to that explains that? Is it financial? Is it like?
In our working groups, we got students together. There didn't seem to be a need that they own one. Now, they may have access to one at home, or they access one, but most students, like they all have phones. And I'm amazed what students are doing on phones these days. Yeah.
Could I just follow up on that? I mean, I don't want to interrupt Laura, but that directly contradicts some survey we did in the library a couple of years ago. We have a laptop lending program in the library, which we were surprised to find becoming more popular rather than less, and I kind of wanted to see what was going on because it had been going down, and all of a sudden, there's really a big factor of international students who needed them, but we asked, it was a point of view survey where anyone who was borrowing a laptop from the library for a couple of week period was asked to do this survey, and the first question was, do you own a laptop? 80% of the students who were borrowing laptops said they own a laptop.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I'm a bit skeptical about that number as well, that it would be that low.
A lot of them said they had phones or tablets, but they didn't say that they had a laptop.
Again, with full apologies to Laura, but
I'm waiting for you to ask my question.
Part of my interest in laptops, of course, is, and this is really a question on my part. Are students able to effectively use Moodle on a
It's getting better all the time. Yeah, when we first adopted it, I would say no, it was really cumbersome and it wasn't very user-friendly. And increasingly over time, the updates and the new versions, and 3.5 that's rolling out in December, we'll be informing you more about soon, but while you're here, it is getting more user-friendly. So when you look at quizzes and tests now on a device, they're actually quite bold, and it does look different than it does on your screen on the computer. It's getting better. Laura?
Thanks, Chantal. So I'm going to build on Michael's question because I'm interested in whether, if your data can drill down into looking specifically at DE students, and I'm just curious as to whether their concerns or their observations were slightly different than, at the 587, because I'm just curious as to how DE sort of rolls out in all this student needs and concerns.
When you start breaking it down, you lose the numbers to have something that's statistically significant. So, but we do have a database and we looked at it. They're not hugely different when we started looking at either by type of student or by area that they're studying in.
There were a lot of students that were concurrently taking distance ed and face-to-face courses too, so that was something interesting that came to light. Most students were doing that. They weren't solely taking distance ed courses, and they were predominantly doing that because of schedule conflicts. So that was the real motivator for the distance ed.
Thing that we found, the students taking DE, the top two reasons, one is scheduling, and I can't remember what the second one was, but it had nothing to do with, because we all often think it's class availability. It wasn't, it was all to do with scheduling. Or we think
the desire to learn online. There wasn't so many comments about that.
Yeah. love to have done that. We,
Just wasn't part of the study.
well, yeah, we had to definitely limit scope.
Yeah.
Both of us are still instructors, and we really wanted to look at that. So that's a whole different piece. We touched on it when we looked at the future. So we looked at a lot of reports and research looking at kind of not almost best practices, but where are things going, and they all talk about distance type education, whether it's a blended model, but providing that flexibility kept coming up time and time again.
It's really important for our students, and I
Yeah.
think that I would love to see further studies that are sort of delving into some of those other things, like our faculty 100% uses Moodle. We don't give people an option. It's kind of how we do things because of some of the consistency and some of the challenges that we have with students with varieties of schedules. So I'm excited to see this at the start. I'm hoping that this isn't the end of where we start to look at things, because I think we're just scratching the surface with a lot of where you started, and thank you for starting that.
Thanks. Yes, Mika.
Yes, so just curious, you consulted with the other regional education council. For what purpose and what did you find?
It was to involve them in our conversation. We want to have as many perspectives inform this as possible, and so that was a really interesting conversation. It was a unique perspective compared to people that are functioning within the institution really closely and using things like Moodle. So some really interesting comments came up. One was actually related to the distance education piece and supporting communities, external communities, and something that I really took away from the conversation was the challenges not only with the technology, but also with the infrastructure that's available in communities to support distance learning. So that was a really good point. If people don't have good Wi-Fi, if people don't have or good computers that really have the capacity to run the programs and things like that, that's a barrier right there. So if we're going to be working with communities, we need to make sure that first of all, there are the resources there present and the training present that is needed before we take on, the education piece and the delivery piece. The other thing that was interesting to me too was there was concerns with the legitimacy of online credentialing, and that was a really interesting conversation. So in terms of funding for students, some of the members at the table were saying that their communities are somewhat hesitant, reluctant right now to sponsor students to take online courses because they felt that they perhaps lacked the legitimacy or the transferability of courses that were conducted face-to-face. So there were some really interesting points and conversations that came from that dialogue. All right, so we're going to hand it over to Beverly and Jordan, if you don't mind, and they're going to speak about what's happened in this small little window since we concluded the consultation, and then hopefully have you inform what's to come in the future. Yes, there's your cone of.
Yeah. Thanks, Chantal and Brad. Great discussion. We are now going to share with you what we have done since we had an opportunity to work with Chantal and Brad on some of the key concerns that were brought up from the surveys. And so we have taken a new approach, and that approach is to pilot a new model so that we are supporting ways in which we can bring technology and pedagogy together. And what we have done, as you'll see in a couple of minutes with one of our other slides, we are working with EdTech and learning and applied research side by side. So at this point in time, when individuals come in to get support, we work with them to say, what is it you're attempting to teach? What is it that you want to deliver from your learning outcomes perspective? And then what would be some of the best teaching and learning strategies that would support you in working with your students to meet that learning outcome? From there, we then have that dialogue with EdTech to say, if this is what the instructors or faculty are attempting to do, what support mechanisms from an EdTech perspective would you suggest we put in place to support the delivery of curriculum? We've done a great deal on focusing on Moodle. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, there was some context. We wanted to make sure that between the time the report landed in June and till today that we were actually, some of the kind of common and blaringly obvious themes we actually acted on. So one of those was that there needed to be more focus and more energy spent just around Moodle and Moodle best practices. And so as a team, a small team, we decided that that was going to be an area of focus. And so that's everything from just consistent practices and doing more workshops and those things. And you'll see some of that in a second. But there was a pretty obvious point right in the report around Moodle. So we wanted to acknowledge that.
The other is the expanded supports.
Yeah, so a consistent thing with supports is that if people had questions around anything that they needed, like so if it was a Moodle question or anything like that, that we had more regular hours. We had one point of contact around email or phone. And so it's just kind of building that expectation for our peers that if they did come for support, it was ready in there for them. So that was also just kind of a shift that we could make with relative ease. So.
It's not us, it's our.
Oh, oh, we're way ahead.
Yeah, way ahead.
Back.
Okay, so let's share a little bit about our new model. On what we are doing, Jordan and I are co-leading this new approach. We have a teaching and learning and technology advisor, and we're very happy that Chantal has been seconded to help us in that way. And we have our education technology coordinators. So we are collectively working to support how teaching, learning, and technology can work together. We've also expanded our support services. So in the summer, we had our planting of the seeds. We had 46 participants. This was the first year that we invited returning faculty and instructors as well as new faculty and instructors to come together to learn, to explore teaching and learning pedagogy as well as the education technology. During our Learning Week last May, we had 100 participants. We have had 43 workshops since September, and those particular workshops have been very intentional based on some of the core issues that came through from the consultation. So a great deal on Moodle, on teaching and learning strategies, program mapping, writing learning outcomes, all of the key attributes that support faculty and instructors in their teaching and learning perspectives. We also are doing a great deal more with one-on-one consultations. And as I say one-on-one consultations, that can be individual, it can be 2 to 3 faculty or instructors that have a core issue that they want to discuss. It can be chairs meetings. So it is whatever that one-on-one consultation group requires or individual requires. Through those consultations, we are again seeing the benefits of supporting the teaching and learning piece combined with the technology component. This was one of the workshops that Chantal and Jake did last week in Penticton. We're doing some pop-up workshops whereby they appear and they are available to talk about the technology and how this particular green screen technology may support teaching and learning. Jordan, do you want to add to that?
Well, I was on Halloween, so
Yeah, that's why she
hence the
put her
tentacles
gloves
there at the bottom. But yeah, so a lot of this is we're adjusting as we go, right? So one thing we started to notice is that everyone's time is constantly challenged, and so that's where one piece of feedback is around pop-up workshops. So it's more present. So this is in the Center of Excellence in Penticton. So it's very visible, and it's just meant to pop in for 5 minutes. So I think that's maybe a practice we'll continue with, but that's just us trying to get out there and socialize some of this a little bit more. So maybe I'll talk around some of what we're doing in the kind of physical space. So we've partnered, again, in that partnership, we've brought in facilities to look at obviously there's a classroom setting. And so we wanted to see how is that evolving, because it's been fairly stagnant. And then also there's some new technologies that we wanted to look at too. So we've spent the next, through the summer until today, looking at what that evolution could look like. So I'm going to talk about a couple of these spaces. Jake, go ahead. Yeah. This is the Revelstoke Classroom. So this is more of a synchronous classroom experience. You'll see, this is in Kelowna here on the right. That's a screen with a camera. And it's not obviously real time because those aren't two different individuals, but the students in Revelstoke can see obviously the instructor in the presentation. So this is something that we're trying and exploring. It's a bit of a pilot program. We have funding and equipment committed to Vernon, Salmon Arm, and Penticton as well. Yeah, Laura, go ahead.
Jordan, what's the difference from that, from the 2 hybrid classrooms you already have in Penticton and Salmon Arm?
We don't have those in Penticton, Salmon Arm today.
You're talking the video conference.
We do video conferencing.
Video conference? Yeah, so what we're trying to do is support a model in which if the instructor goes to Revelstoke, there's a camera at the back of this room as well. So we're trying to, basically this is the next gen of those, is the hope. Yeah. Yeah. This is in room C-130. I don't know if anyone's taught in there. Okay, hopefully a good experience. No? Okay.
Sound is an issue. Some days it works, some days it doesn't.
Sound,
Like
okay.
video videos.
That's good feedback. So the purpose of this is that we need to begin to get feedback on where a classroom setting could go. So this is the initial prototype. So it removes the screens out of the corner, which a lot of people had complained about, at least to IT and facilities, around a pull-down screen coming in front of whiteboards. So it's moved to all whiteboards. It's a short throw, so hopefully reducing glare and shadows. There's the Wi-Fi display enabled now, so that you could teach from anywhere in the room. Actually, you could teach from anywhere in the college, or present anywhere from anywhere in the college. And then it's standardized some of the controls, so cleaning up that kind of snake you see in classrooms. Further, we're looking at what does movable furniture look like. So all these tables are on wheels. They lock, and they also nest together, so if you flip them up. And then lastly, there's 2 rows that are higher and 2 rows that are lower. So as I mentioned, this is, we're now to the point where we want to get some feedback on this room. Go ahead, sir.
So the higher and lower desks are great for seeing over people's heads, but I find with exams, people in the higher rows just start doing this.
No, fair enough.
And look down at the people in the lower right
Yeah.
in front of them.
Yeah.
So that's a bit interesting.
Yeah. There's definitely competing priorities here. Like the higher desk meets a wellness building standard, so there's different competing priorities, not always obviously practical, as you noted, right? So we'll be getting some feedback on these rooms pretty quick in terms of where do we need to go. This is our L100 space in Kelowna, so this was where the EdTech team was. The intent with this room is it's a place to come in and collaborate and work together on many of the topics we're discussing today, but it also allows on the IT side and the EdTech side to bring in new technologies and try them out. So it's a bit of, this is meant to be a sandbox in a safe place. I'll mention this is B120. This is where the EdTech team is, as well as the Learning and Applied Research team. So this is where you can find the current supports as we discussed today. No?
We're interested in getting additional feedback. So what is your thought process, your perspectives on the current supports? Where do you envision the supports need to evolve to? What is it you need to advance learning, teaching, and technology in the work that you do? Certainly we'd like to open that up. What recommendations would you make for us moving forward from a support perspective? Being recognizing that we have used many aspects of the DELT consultation report to inform the decisions that we have made to date. It is always very, very important for us to continue to gain new information as to how we can be supporting educators. Open it up. Questions, comments? Mika, and then we'll go to Michael.
Yeah, not in the current phase. The website's mostly focused on prospective students. However, we're starting a lot of that work around what does a future My Okanagan and some of those other digital supports look like, as well as there's rumblings around what we're going to do around some additional tools used for support. It's obviously a much bigger can of worms to talk about AI in terms of getting support at 11 at night and that sort of thing, but I think the world's going there, and so it's just a case of us maybe trying a couple pilots or that around that sort of support. But
Michael?
Excuse me. This approach that we've been taking with us in the last year,
Since September.
it strikes me as being a focus on what we currently have in terms of resources and knowledge, and refining it and improving it, all of which is excellent. I think that's exactly the right way to go. But I would suggest, and Kerry brought this up a little earlier, the whole issue of technology-enhanced pedagogy is in some ways far more advanced than anything we do here. In fact, in many cases, far more advanced than we do across Canada, with a few exceptions. And so I would think that the next stage of DELTs includes both the implementation of the things you've come up with, we've all three have come up with now.
Yep.
But I think the next stage would be much more strategic and probably with a 2 or 3 year horizon, where you put together a group that's charged with identifying some of those future innovations in pedagogy, which the college will probably have to come to grips with it, either being pushed into it or hopefully taking advantage of it and building it. So
Yes.
that's just an observation.
You're absolutely right, and actually Ross, Jordan, and I did a tour of a number of colleges about a year and a half ago to see how they were moving educational technology and learning and teaching pedagogy, and some of our sister colleges are a couple of steps ahead of us. But we also know that we're building the foundation from which we can then move forward, and we'll probably be able to take that technology piece and move it forward much faster because we're building the foundation in pedagogy. We also very clearly recognize the need for curriculum designers, for instructional designers, and the media component piece to support us in advancing this agenda.
And this, I'd also say it's very important for us as a community to stress the fact that, and I hope everybody would agree with me on this, what we currently do is great. There's always this worry that when we do this, it's to address a problem. And I think in terms of teaching, we do a fabulous job, both face-to-face and distance. I think we're struggling a bit with the blended right now because it's brand new.
also be offering planting of the seeds in January. We've always offered it only once in August, and the demand is now we need to have a January component because, of course, there are many new people coming in January. So we're listening and we're trying to respond with the resources that we have available. Other questions?
And just not to beat a dead horse, but we really need to, we need some assistance with our online learning as well. So I know that I already said that, but we really do need some help with that. And I think that it will help in other areas too, especially as we're looking at how do we support more full course offerings on other campuses. You know, our current blended strategies aren't working, the ones we have anyway. The Revelstoke looks really good, that's promising, but we do need some support in thinking about how we are able to support our smaller campuses as well to have more full offerings.
Great. Other questions, comments?
Now that we're coming towards the end of the 2016-2020 strategic plan, will maybe some of this be part of the next strategic plan as well, in order for us to focus on it a little bit more?
I'm going to ask Andrew to respond to that.
So, you know, as you're probably aware, we're about to engage in the strategic planning process again to develop the next strat plan. So I expect this conversation, this research, and so on will definitely inform that plan. So wouldn't surprise me at all if there's a bit more yet.
We would like to sincerely thank you for engaging in the dialogue with us today. We have set up the website or the site again so that you are able to make comments, continue the dialogue. We also have been recording this, so if you have colleagues that would like to view it, we will make that available. We'll let you know how to access it. And we do have coffee and refreshments outside of the room. Thank you very much.